What is going on, ladies and gents? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. We have the engine out as promised. So yesterday or Saturday's video, you guys will see we pulled the transmission. You guys saw the state of the clutch, the state of the flywheel, the state of the actual. Well, you guys didn't really pay attention to the flywheel because we didn't really show you. At that point, we were just literally a vacuum away from the, AC compressor, a couple coolant lines, meaning we had to drain the coolant, and the engine was pretty much ready to come out. So at that point, we figured we're gonna drop in the clutch. We're gonna, probably start floating the springs. When we're this close, why not just pull the motor, do our head gasket upgrade, do the head studs, throw the valve springs in, throw the cams in. We're gonna throw the Kelford Easies in for now, just to be able to kind of run this with Ecutech and still, not move the cams too much, because we don't have proper cam control with Ecutech just yet. So hopefully later on we will. I gave my boys at Pure Turbo a call. They happen to be in Oceanside, about 90 miles away from us, and we actually picked up a Pure 550. So Tony tomorrow is gonna go pick that up once I get the core out, because I was gonna keep this as a core, but it's $3,500 core charge, so it didn't make sense to spend over $5 grand on a turbo. So we're just gonna get rid of the core, so you guys will see the turbo actually being taken off, and we'll see what condition it's in. When we're initially trying to dial it in, we kept running into some surge, a lot of surge back to back. That's gonna go on as well, and that uses the stock actuator, so all this stuff kind of gets removed. The Pure turbo goes on. It's just like the OEM turbocharger. Obviously it's a stock frame, bolt-on style turbocharger, so the inlet and everything is gonna work just fine. Again, for the time being, we're actually gonna do a how-to of essentially, once you get the wiring harness up, which is what I did, it takes about 5 minutes to get the harness off. Now, how to take everything off, and kind of in steps. First thing is gonna be the turbocharger, disassembly, and then we'll attack the intake manifold side of things. And then we'll get all the accessories off and the valve cover off, obviously. There's a high pressure pump here that we also have to take off. So yeah, it's gonna be a fun teardown. I don't think there has been there hasn't been a USA teardown aside from, I think Nemtech did one, but I'm not sure if it was a step-by-step or not, but they did an extensive video too. I'm just not sure if it was step-by-step. But yeah, so what we're gonna do is, we're gonna show you guys, so come on along. Look at how tiny that is.
Yeah, little baby.
Everyone on TikTok is like, this is only making 340 horsepower at 30 pounds of boot. Look at the size of the turbo, dude.
It's the size of a blow-off valve, bro.
Look at the manifold. One thing that I always do, and I recommend you guys do as well, is just any bolt that you take off, you put it back, so you're not trying to figure out where the hell you got that bolt from.
Life hacks with Ronnie.
Life hacks with Ron. See, 700 miles, how easily it comes off. So what we have to do is we have to take the clip off of this, take that 10 millimeter off. That looks like a 17. Take that 17 off. All of these copper washers have to be replaced. They're not reusable. 2 10 millimeters for the turbo oil return. As you see, it's already dripping. There's also another 17 here. This one is actually the turbo feed.
So Ronnie, why do you take this many photos?
Well, this is pretty complex, even though it's a tiny engine. I just don't want to get everything mixed up. You can come in here, man. They've seen your face before.
Come on by.
Oh, I'm just inspecting. Come on by. The last thing you want to do is take things off and not know where they go. That's why I always tell Tony, I'm like, if you're doing a job the first time, just take pictures. You will literally take 100 pictures, and you will just, one thing you can't connect because you didn't take it at the right angle. So,
and for this car specifically, there's like nothing out there, I feel like.
There's very little information when I was doing the AMG stuff too. The port injectors are 173 cc's. and they're actually only used for startup and idle and a little bit of cruise conditions. So as soon as you give the engine any load, it switches directly over to the direct injectors. All right, so as you guys can see, there's no carbon buildup whatsoever. That's thanks to those port injectors, because usually DI cars, because they don't have it in the intake runner, you know, your PCV and just blow-by gases, everything recirculating, going back inside the engine, especially running thin oils, it's kind of inevitable. You basically build up a lot of soot on the runner walls, on the intake side, on the intake ports. So when you have the port injectors right over here, what happens is, again, like I said, this is just for cruise, idle, and startups, and of course to clean the intake port. So super important. You don't have to walnut blast these like you do on some like Volkswagens and stuff. I'm sure you guys have all heard of, you know, walnut blasting services. You don't have to do it on the GRs or the GR Corolla, because again, the port injectors are facing right at the intake valves, and they essentially clean it because gasoline is a cleaning agent basically. Anytime you're taking a direct injection high pressure pump off, remember that it's gonna have a load on it. Usually you want to do it at like a certain engine crank angle. I haven't looked at all that up for that, but you'll be fine as long as you slowly take it off. So you can't just zap one side and then zap the other side. If you do, you're just gonna, you know, bend this and you might just hurt the pump. So you're gonna go slowly. And this is just a map sensor. So this would be cool because, dude, stop. Trust me, you have louder cars. It's just a...
It's the M8 with downpipes, bro. It is a 5 series of some sort.
I'm taking off the valve cover bolts, but obviously it would help if we pull off the actual ignition coils so it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. These actually look like R35 coils, a little bit different, but it's short. It's pretty big actually, right? That's fucking huge.
Depends who you're comparing it to.
Once we pull the cover off, we're going to reuse this bolt to turn the crankshaft. However, because we're missing that piece of space basically that goes between the actual snout of the crank and the bolt itself, we need to put a spacer here. If we don't, we're going to run this deep into the crank and potentially ruin the threads. So keep in mind when you're trying to do this at home. If you're trying to do this, you probably shouldn't do this.
Who's trying this at home, bro? I'm just standing around here curious. There's a bunch of different like sections to this engine that I don't recall seeing on anything else.
Look, every engine has a different design. This is a pretty tall engine, but what you have to consider is this is the block. This is the short block essentially, right? So the crankshaft is right here. The pistons and rods are here. The pistons and that, you know, top dead center right over here, and then you got the cylinder head. So you got this, you got the cylinder head, you got the short block, you have this girdle here. So the girdle, basically, you're gonna have your balance shaft there, you're gonna have your oil pump there, you're gonna have your baffling there for windage, because as this thing's turning, you know, it's trying to hit that slosh of oil, and if it doesn't have a windage tray, it'll foam up the oil, and that's when you beat air into the oil, causing aeration. And when the oil pickup picks that up and sends that through the bearings, oil is not a great, air is not a great lubricant. So that's why you want a nice windage tray. And as these engines are getting, you know, better and better, and the development's getting, the R&D development is getting, you know, further and further, what happens is the baffling becomes better. A lot of high performance engines actually have a dry sump, which has a scavenge port, or a couple scavenge ports, and when you have that, you actually pull all of the oil out and then you feed all of the oil in, so you're not having any of that windage happening. So obviously that's beneficial, but it adds significant cost to the manufacturing process. Aside from the girdle, we also have the upper oil pan and the lower oil pan. So this portion, even though it's cast aluminum, this is still a part of the oil pan. So when you get the short block from Toyota, you're just getting this. This is what we have over there. You're not getting any of this stuff. All right, before you take everything off, you want to make sure everything's at TDC number 1 and you want to mark your chain. The way you do it is, obviously from the factory, it's timed properly. So what we have to do is we have to make sure that the cams are lined up with, the intake cam is supposed to line up with this guy over here. And then the exhaust cam is supposed to line up with this mark over here on the cylinder head. So this one's not really lining up right now just because we don't have much tension, but that's how it has to be. So that's TDC number 1. And then on the crankshaft, if you look at the factory service manual, it tells you that this Woodruff key has to be at a 27-degree angle in correlation to the bottom of the short block itself. So we're all timed, we're all marked. So once we put it back together, everything's gonna be in time again. So once we take this off, we're able to take all the cam caps off, pop the camshafts out, take the lifters out. We can choose to do the springs right now, or we can do it after we install the head gasket. It doesn't really matter. Actual camshaft is not sitting on the cylinder head. There's basically caps underneath. Interesting design. 4 of these are M11 thickness. 4 of them are M12 thickness. Very weird. I'm not sure which ones, but we'll find out as soon as we take it off. Same thing, numbered, I4, I3, I2. Pull this off. Give it a quick look. Everything seems to be the same. We do have to see, we have to pull this and we have to pull this. Otherwise we won't have access to the bolts. So we do have to pull the primary. And we have to pull this rear one. It's just doweled, nothing crazy.
How many dyno runs do you think you've done with this car?
Like over 300 easily. It's a pretty wide washer. My Evo guys would understand. The wider washer helps distribute load. The problem is there is only 8 studs, but there is only 3 cylinders. So before we actually pull the head off, I'll get all the lifters, which are these guys, and the rockers, the followers off. That way when we tilt the head around, the only thing we'll get out is oil and these won't fall everywhere. So. To think that the guys at Power Tune made 770 horsepower before blowing this thing up on stock components is pretty mind-boggling, man. I mean, that's kind of insane. So at this point, we should just be able to lift off. Time for a 5-ring head gasket and some cams. It's like an octagon shaped. It's not completely round. You see that?
It's supposed to be like that?
I mean, yeah. You can see where the fuel was injecting. You see how it's like cleaning the carbon? Mm-hmm. That's from the pressure of the injector, actually. Squareness of the gasket, you can see right here. You see that? Mm-hmm. Very interesting design. Quite a bit of that explains it. Piston to wall clearance. As I was explaining earlier, we're gonna go with the easy cams from Kelford. So even though we have every single grind that they offer, we have the A's, the B's, and the C's. The C's being the 280 plus degree duration. We're going with the easies so we can have adequate control over everything on Ecutech while cam control is still not fully defined. And once cam control is defined, which with my luck is probably going to be the day I start the car, full cam control is going to be released. I can drop the engine again and do this again. As I was saying, this is a composite head gasket. However, when it comes to sealing the combustion chambers, it uses these tool steel rings, and each of them have 3 grooves on them. Not grooves, they have high spots essentially on them. And what happens is whenever you torque the cylinder head down onto the gasket, onto the block, the rings actually bite into the head, creating a super high pressure seal. What we're gonna do next is we're just gonna give the bottom side of the cylinder head a wipe, and then we're gonna install the cylinder head, torque it down with the new studs. M12s go to 90 foot-pounds, the M11s go to 80 foot-pounds. We'll get the torque spec, the sequence from the factory service manual real quickly. And then also one other thing, whenever you're installing a head gasket, if you're installing an MLS, which is the factory multi-layer steel head gasket, you want to make sure that both sealing surfaces are as smooth as they can be. So the RA, the roughness average, when it gets machined, you want it to be as low as it can, you know, preferably even in the single digits. Cool stuff. We're gonna give that a wipe. We're gonna put that on, torque it, and then, yeah, cams and installing everything in the next video. All right, guys, so we did have to take our time, obviously, to make sure we're not making any mistakes. This is our first time doing it, so we gotta be extra cautious. The cylinder head is completely bolted down, torqued down with the custom H13 head studs. Now, the only thing that's left is to do the valve springs, which we're gonna do it the old-fashioned way that we do on Evos. We're just gonna pressurize the cylinders. We don't have to worry about it being at TDC or anything because there's no cams, so we don't have to worry about any valves being open or anything like that. Once we install the springs, which we'll show you guys in a second, and the cams that we'll show you guys in a second, we'll then move forward to taking the phasers off of the old cams, the OEM cams, and then putting them on the easy drop-in cams from Kelford. So what we'll show you guys next is the easies compared to the OEMs, and that's going to be the next video, which we'll shoot on Sunday and probably have up by Wednesday, maybe. A lot of tech-filled video. Chris is gonna have a lot of fun editing.
Great time. Not only do I hear it live, but I gotta watch it like 3 times, so like it gets engraved in my brain.
Yeah, you learn.
So now I know how to build a GRC block. Bingo. That's gonna be fun putting back together.
It's not that bad. It looks a lot worse than it is.
Were you into Legos as a kid? Or is that what led you?
I'm still into Legos, man. I just bought like the Chevy SS.
Oh yeah.
Piece. Yeah, dude. Super cool. We got the Easies, which is what we're gonna use. We got the A's, we got the B's, and we got the 288s from Gobies shipping next week. They just finished the batch, so the Easy 267s. Beautiful cams. Look at that.
Beauty.
Nice shaft. That's a nice shaft. Yeah, we're gonna show you guys this versus the OEM, but OEM is OEM. This is this. I mean, what are you gonna see? You can't measure the lows with your eyes. So yeah, next video we're gonna do the valve springs. We're gonna do the cams. Crack yourself a nice cold beer. Actually, you know what? You guys deserve a shot of whiskey.
Ooh.
Oh, I'm in trouble. I gotta go.